One of the frustrations I see on that is that it doesn't actually tell you the shipping costs until you're on the billing page.
Yeah.
This is a common mistake that e-commerce businesses make, is they don't actually declare what the shipping costs are up front. If you don't know what those exact users' issues are with your website to try to convert them better, user experience people often will claim that they know what is best for the users.
So on today's episode, you're going to find out why conversion research is the goldmine for increasing e-commerce revenue. It's a great episode you do not want to miss, so do stay tuned. Hey 2Xers, welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast show. I'm your host, Kunle Campbell. The 2X e-commerce podcast show is dedicated to digital commerce insights for retail and commerce teams. Each week on this podcast, we interview either a commerce expert, a founder of a digital native consumer brand, or representative from a best-in-class commerce SaaS product with a tight remit to give you ideas you can test right away on your brand, so you can improve commerce growth metrics such as conversions, average order value, repeat customers, your audience size, and ultimately your gross merchant value or sales. We're here to help you sell more sustainably. Welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast. Now, on today's episode is really, really interesting because the person I'm about to introduce you to, his name is Rich Page. I have come across him several times. I'll give you a little story. So back in 2014, when I decided to move more from a generalist digital marketer, largely SEO, into the world of e-commerce, one of the disciplines I realized that I needed to understand and to a sense actually master was conversion rate optimization. And so I started to sort of link up with the greats of in the industry, like Pep Laya. I spoke with Ni Ayal on this show, and I started to get a good big picture of all the major players across the world, across North America and the UK and Europe, essentially on conversion rate optimization, just the greatest minds. And one name kept popping in and out as a consultant. His name is Rich Page. We've been sort of colleagues in passing. We haven't really engaged, per se, but his name has been coming on in and out as an authority. And so when the opportunity arose to bringing him on the show, when it came to me, I seized that opportunity. And here today, he's about to talk about what you're about to listen to is my interview with him, where he delves into the gold mine of conversions, of increasing actual e-commerce revenue, which is understanding essentially what customers are thinking, through research, deep research, whether it's qualitative research through visitor surveys, customer surveys, and user testing, and actually qualitative. So he talks about starting from a qualitative and then using the qualitative data to inform the kind of questions you ask at a qualitative level, at a one-to-one level. And I think this just speaks to it just makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, we're designing our experiences for customers. It's all about customer experience, whether it's your purchase experience or your post-purchase experience. It's all about the customers. It's all about customer centricity. So it's an interesting conversation. We talk about A/B split testing, the merits and demerits, some misconceptions around just testing in general, and his CRO methodology. He talks a bit about his book. His book is called Website Optimization an Hour a Day. This essentially forms the foundation for you to start to run test, foundation for your CRO activities, for your testing activities. A really, really interesting conversation I had with him. Another thing to be aware of is Optimize. He's worked with over 100 online businesses, some of which are Disney.com. And I'm not sure if you remember my interview with Unbound Merino, the founder of Unbound Merino. Well, he's done the CRO for them. You can find him on richpage.com. It's rich-page.com. I'll link to it in the show notes anyway. Great convo. Enjoy the convo. I'm sure you'd enjoy it anyway. But before I leave you, just a food for thought. I put out a post on my LinkedIn. If you haven't, already sent me a friend request on LinkedIn, do send me a request. So I put out a link on LinkedIn the other day saying that we're essentially going to have an in-person event. We're bringing the community together in London, in person. It has to be in person. And I got a lot of interest. I've got lots of DMs. And I am putting together my team, actually, both the team in 2X and Octillion are putting together an event that you would not forget. It's going to be very centered around operators. We're making some big invites. Just expect some announcements. It's looking like it's going to be in the month of May 2022. Let's see. Over the coming weeks, I will give you more information on that. But for the meantime, or in the meantime, enjoy this conversation I had with Rich Page all around conversion rate optimization. Cheers. So welcome, Rich. Welcome to the 2x e-commerce podcast show. I feel like I've known you like forever because of the amount of impact you have in on LinkedIn and a few other groups we've crossed paths on. Anyway, welcome to the 2x e-commerce podcast. And if you could just take the next minute or two to introduce yourself, it'd be brilliant.
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've seen your name and your podcast around for so long now, and it's a privilege to be on your podcast. So, yes, just to introduce myself, my name is Rich Page. I'm the CEO and founder of my own consulting business, Rich Page Website Optimizer. I've been doing CRO now for 15 years. So, and I started off doing web analytics, then moved into CRO. And then I ended up doing a website usability thesis for my master's. Then I've worked for Disney Online in analytics, and then I quickly started to realize that it's not just doing the analytics. You need to then, when the insights that you've got from doing analytics, you need to then help understand what you can improve on the website. You know, I didn't want to be a reporting monkey that just gave reports to someone else and then I hoped that they would do it. I wanted to actually say, okay, well, I've noticed that there's a problem with the homepage or checkout or something. And that's why I then started to realize, this CRO thing is getting big. And I actually read an amazing book by Brian Eisenberg called Call to Action.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, this is amazing what you can do with CRO. So I started to get into that. And then I didn't think that one day I would end up writing a book on conversion rate optimization, which is website optimization an hour a day, which is actually now 10 years old.
Wow.
Yes. So, but yes, I specialize in conversion research for conversion rate optimization, e-commerce and SaaS businesses.
For e-commerce and SaaS businesses, 15 years is a long time, and I like to ask questions. This question to people with this length of career, which is, how is e-commerce from your perspective, from your first party perspective, how has it changed over these last 15 years when you started? What have been the macro trends you've seen in the last decade or more?
I think one of the biggest things, particularly recently, is the bar that you have to hit in terms of user experience and conversion rate optimization best practices is now so high that if you don't do that, one of your competitors will be doing it better than you, and you will be losing a considerable amount of your traffic and therefore sales to those businesses that are investing in CRO and UX more than you are. Obviously Amazon has hugely changed things as well. That's probably the single biggest impact that I think of in terms of e-commerce. And one thing in particular, free shipping and free returns. I think, even when they started to do it, they didn't always give you free returns. I remember if you bought certain things, you couldn't return it easily. You had to give them reasons. But now it doesn't matter what you buy, you just return it. Yeah. So that actually has a big impact on smaller businesses who are indirectly competing with them. And I find that if you don't offer free shipping and free returns, then if you've got your products are also similar to what's on Amazon, they are your competitor, and it's very hard to beat that. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges facing e-commerce now, because of these giants out there that are potentially taking away a lot of your customer base, because in particular, Amazon Prime.
That's a very salient point, very, very salient point, that convenience, that customer centricity. I mean, there's an ecological impact to all of this, because, return wastage is at an all-time high, but it's addictive. You know that that purchase is guaranteed. Nothing can really go wrong for Amazon at the moment. What I do is I print out the Royal Mail. We have a local Royal Mail in the post office in the co-op, and just drop it. You scan from the phone, and then you just drop it. It is so easy. It's a very, very salient point. My own takeaway because I've been around for a bit, maybe a decade or so, is really that the changing of guard in mid-tier e-commerce from Magento to like Shopify Plus, and these other SaaS e-commerce platforms that have just made agility and getting into business real fast.
Definitely. Shopify has been great for that.
It's been insane. Insane. Let's talk about
Shopify is just everywhere now, and I think one of the challenges with that though is that unless you're on the pro version, you can't even customize the checkout properly.
Exactly.
You're stuck with what Shopify thinks you need to do.
Exactly.
One of the frustrations I see on that is that it doesn't actually tell you the shipping costs until you put your credit card detail, until you're on the billing page.
Yeah.
So and this is a common mistake that e-commerce businesses make, is they don't actually declare what the shipping costs are up front. And again, if you're competing with Amazon, you're going to get to the checkout and you're like, I still don't know how much it's going to cost to get this to me. So there's another reason why Amazon is winning that. And if you're using Shopify, the basic account, if you don't know these mistakes you could be making, then you're potentially losing a lot of people from shopping cart abandonment.
That is another very, 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 very important point. And you often find even, the Shopify Plus merchants do not do much customizations on their checkouts, which again, it's costing them a lot from a conversion standpoint, and they don't know.
Yeah, and then it depends on, many e-commerce businesses are, they're led by a founder or something that may not actually know anything about CRO or UX, and maybe wants to do it the way they want to do it. Mm-hmm. It's a term I always like to say is a HIPPO, highest paid person's opinion. Yep. So they can often do things that are not the best thing to do for user experience and conversion optimization. And they don't know that they're even making these mistakes. So maybe they have an online marketing person that disagrees with them, or if they're lucky to have a web analyst, then they may disagree with them, but ultimately it's their business. So they don't understand. It should be more about customer centricity, about what they want, what works for them, what the problems are they're having, which is why this conversion research is so problem.
It's so important. You often find that founders have this problem with they're either very emotional about their companies or their business or their brand, and they can't really detach their personalities from it, and it's an ego thing. And you'd never ever be able to grow into a systematized organization if you don't put in the experts there and separate yourself from operations, which it's another topic for conversation.
Exactly.
But let's focus on CRO. You're an expert CRO. You're a CRO expert. I've often wondered when to consider conversion rate optimization versus, say, rethinking user experience, or even just redesigning a website, changing the experience in the website. Do you want to take us through these options available to listeners, particularly, e-commerce directors, thinking, okay, should I go a CRO approach, or should I improve UX, or what is the best approach from your point of view?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in terms of my perspective about CRO, to me, user experience is one of the most critical parts of CRO, because ultimately, if you're not improving the user experience of your website and your users, then they're not going to convert. So they actually go hand in hand. So some user experience people might say CRO is different, but to me, they overlap significantly so. So you can't do CRO without doing user experience. So, for example, one of the things I see is that bigger e-commerce brands, they want to get into personalization. But if you do personalization on a website that doesn't have good user experience, that people don't know, they can't navigate your website properly, the forms are hard to fill in, their filters are not good, then it doesn't matter if you personalize it, because it's still, I like to use the analogy of lipstick on a pig.
Exactly.
The personalization is the lipstick and the website's the pig. It's still a pig.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's really important to get this user experience right. And there's certainly best practices you can do with the user experience. But then if you don't know what those exact users' issues are with your website to try to convert them better, and user experience people often will claim that they know what is best for the users. But unless you're a UX researcher and you do a really good job of understanding your visitors, you won't really get to understand, what the types of issues that they're having with your website. And a lot of businesses make the mistake of just redesigning their website using UX best practices, and they do generally a good job of that, but they don't really understand what the main issues were on the website currently. They may understand the personas of the users, but they won't really know, okay, what are the main issues that are happening with the website right now. So for example,
go for it. Sorry.
So for example, when I did a customer survey for one of my clients, I found that even though the user experience was very good, that they didn't often understand which size to buy. So they needed more help understanding which size to buy depending on which different product it is. So based on, and I heard that a lot from this customer survey. So then basically after that, I then used conversion optimization best practices to improve the website to convert more of those people on top of the existing UX best practices. So if you've got a website that isn't particularly a good user experience, when I see that, I'll often tell the client or the prospect to say, look, you need some design love before we get into really the CRO aspect of this, first of all, because if your website doesn't look professional, if it doesn't look modern, if it's, there's a lot of things that are not easy to use. If you start doing CRO on top of that to improve certain things, it's still not going to have as big or as impact as because you don't have a good user experience in the first place. And then in terms of the redesign, I think it's one of the best things you can do with redesigns, as you were asking earlier, is to do more of an iterative improvements rather than just throwing out a website saying, oh, that didn't work, or maybe the founder doesn't like it anymore, without realizing what does work and what doesn't work. So that's why it's important to do this conversion research to find out, using user testing, visitor surveys, and customer surveys in particular, to find out what those issues, hesitations, and doubts were. And also finding out what they did like, because you don't want to get rid of the stuff that they did like and did work. Once you understand that, you can then build that into the UX prototypes, knowing like, okay, we know what the problems were. Let's do this prototyping and get UX in to do the design, and then get more feedback on it before you launch it. And then potentially, depending on how much of a redesign you do, even launch a new product page first of all. Launch a homepage. Don't launch the whole thing at once, because if you do launch the whole thing at once, you're not going to know what it was that actually had an impact on your conversion rates and revenue. So for example, you may take one step forward but two steps back. Like you may have an amazing product page, but your filters may be terrible now and worse than before. And so you won't be able to find products very easily. Or maybe your category pages are not very engaging anymore.
So what's a wait period for this iteration? You make an iteration on say, the filtering system and on the catalog page, for instance, or your collection pages as it's referred to on Shopify. How long do you wait to sort of gauge the results? Say, okay, we've made progress, or it's retrogressive. Let's learn. We've made a learning. Is it data? Is it time? How do you sort of plow through those iterations in a redesign?
Yeah, sure. So I would say it really is going to depend on how much traffic you have and how many conversions you've got. That's ultimately, if you've got a lot of traffic, you can get that data pretty fast. I would usually wait. You need at least a week to see the impact, because you need to take into account the variation by the day of the week. But it's never usually going to be. Most e-commerce websites don't have the luxury of that much traffic. So it will really be depending on launching those iterative changes, but also trying to combine a few at the same time, because if you're only able to launch one at a time, then it's going to really slow down your ability to improve your website quite quickly. And that's where it really comes in. If you know, for example, that there's things hidden on your website that is kind of broken, you would just fix those. So you don't even need to do any iterations on that. So for example, if you do conversion research and you find out that your forms, that one of the error messages isn't particularly clear, or on mobile, on the smaller devices like 320 width, like the iPhone SE 2019 or the iPhone 5, which actually 5% of people can often be using on your website. If you don't understand those issues that they're having on there, then it's going to break the experience for them. So if you discover those issues, fix those. That is kind of different than a redesign process. So I would always, depending on how good the user experience of your website is in the first place, do those fixes first, and depending on how many you have. And it's one of the great things you can do with also using visitor recordings. So you can watch what people do on your websites using tools like Hotjar. You can use things like looking for rage clicks is a newer kind of feature of these tools, where a rage click is defined as when someone is clicking crazily on one thing, either because it's not working or they don't understand it. So what's great about tools like Hotjar and things like Content Square is that you can actually run a search to find these people who are doing these rage clicks. And so you can actually quickly figure out if something's broken, because your QA team may not have spotted it being broken. So that's why you really need to
letting the machine really help you figure that out. Just going back to your definition of CRO, would you say that websites need to work, essentially? They don't need to be pigs, as you said. So they need to work well using user testing principles, which is a whole sort of category in itself, or a whole discipline really in itself. And then CRO's objective, essentially, in order to get CRO started, is getting into the minds of segments of shoppers, essentially, of users of your website, in order to understand their frustrations, what makes them happy, what makes them tick, and then take that learning towards actually fixing them. Okay, perfect.
Exactly.
So getting into the minds of these users, what techniques do you go for? Qualitative data? Do you go for quantitative data? How do you prioritize on traffic? Because all traffic isn't equal. I might, Kim Kardashian may have just said, she likes the phone cases that we sell, and then my website just blows up. That sort of traffic would be different from, a normal, boring, wet Monday, right? So how would you sort of get into the minds of these of users of your website or shoppers?
Well, that's a good question. So one of the things that I always ask clients when I'm beginning a project with them is looking into what their top traffic sources are, and understanding what they may have seen in a like Facebook ad, in order to, and then understanding whether they're even arriving on your website. Because I see a lot of e-commerce businesses, they're very heavily reliant on Facebook ads, and if their Facebook ads aren't very good, they don't use unique value proposition in the titles, and they only use pretty average static or maybe a few animated GIFs in there, then when they get to the website, it's often not the best start anyway. So to me, conversion rate optimization isn't just the website, it's trying to optimize your traffic sources that go to the website. So, because ultimately you could have the world's best website, but if you've got, if your traffic sources, particularly the ones that you're really in control of, like Facebook ads and Google ads, are not optimized to continue the message that comes from those, then they're going to arrive on your website and they're already not going to be primed as much as they could be in order to purchase. And I see that quite often because Facebook ads works so well often for driving high quality visitors. If you do it well, I have clients that 70% of their traffic is Facebook ads. So if you don't optimize that in particular and make it really that message continuation work really well between them, then that's why it's really important to focus on that segment of traffic that you were talking about. But then obviously you want to get the repeat visitors purchasing as well as the first time visitors purchasing, because if you don't, like when they get to your website and if they don't like what they see, they're not engaged. And then when they move through your website, if there's information that's missing that they need to know in order for them to make a purchase decision, they're not going to purchase anyway. And then the people that do purchase, if you don't treat them as a segment to get them to come back, knowing what the typical purchase life cycle is, what types of products they would buy in which order, setting up email automation, setting up retargeting in order to get that funnel of customers back, to increase the revenue from that source. You're missing that too. So it's really three is the pre-traffic that's coming, first-time visitors, and then your customers, your returning visitors. Are to me, are the biggest.
So you've mentioned traffic sources, which is definitely motivational. So if if I saw if there was a mention in the press, it would be different from Google or Facebook. But what other? I think you discussed quantitative sources earlier, which is like visitor surveys, customers. In terms of getting into the mind, really understanding what is going on in their head. So knowing where they're coming from provides excellent context. But are there any other sort of data points, CRO practitioners can tap into towards, really getting more insights, more customer insights, or shopper insights, sorry.
Yeah, so there's definitely the whole qualitative metrics, which are really important in the first place to understand the performance of your website. And that's where Google Analytics comes in association with things like Shopify metrics, to figure out what those top landing pages are, what's your shopping cart abandonment rate, what's your average order value, figuring out those. But really for the CRO best practices, there's certain reports that you need to be focusing on. So, for example, you need to be looking at the conversion rates coming from your top landing pages. You need to be looking at the conversion rate from your main sources of traffic and your bounce rate for those. Because once you know those, you can then go about using a target to try and beat those. Not necessarily comparing to articles you may have read out there, like, oh, you need to have a 2% conversion rate. Even in the same industry, so it can vary depending on who your user is, what your exact product is. It may vary. So really trying to beat what your current metrics are showing. So Google Analytics is really important for that, but also figuring out where those big drop-off points are. So looking at their shopping cart, looking at the abandonment cart metrics in there, which are really important to look at. Even using some of the more advanced e-commerce reports that are in Google Analytics that actually tell you what the shopping performance is for each of your products. So looking at the buy to detail rate of particular products, you might find that one of your best selling products doesn't actually convert very well. So once you know that, you can this product isn't converting as well as the other ones. You can think, well, maybe there's something on this page that is not clear. And then that's what's great about doing the qualitative side of things. Once you've kind of figured out, okay, these are the kind of issues from the quantitative from Google Analytics, you can then kind of direct the questions are potentially issues in your visitor surveys, your customer surveys, and your user testing, which is really the conversion research, the real qualitative feedback that you get, which tells you why they are doing what they're doing, as opposed to the what, which is to me is much more important. Being able to know why they're doing it, because if you're a good web analyst, you're going to find out what they're doing. But you really need to take that to the next level and discover why they're doing it.
So the what is the quantitative. You're looking at it from a data analysis standpoint. You're looking at landing pages. You're looking at conversion numbers. You're really a data analyst, really looking through all the macro level data. And then for qualitative, from what you said, the visitor survey, customer survey, and user testing, you're asking for first-hand experience information from customers. I mean, visitor surveys are questions to them, when they're visiting your site. Customer surveys are to your existing customers. And then user testing is getting a group of testers essentially that match the demographics of your
Yes,
website
exactly.
to actually test, and you ask them questions and then they go through the entire experience and give you feedback. So this is like user feedback essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Ways. Okay.
Yeah, and to me, I would say it's a gold mine. Mm-hmm. It really is for the amount of insights and feedback that you get from it. But you have to know what questions to ask.
Exactly.
And this is what I see out there, that people have this misconception, even with surveys, that, I'm sure you've seen these surveys that pop up and annoy you, like, oh, would you like to give you feedback? And then you click it, and then there's 20 questions. It takes way too long.
Yeah. Most
of them are about the product. They're not, they're quite old-fashioned, and they're not particularly engaging. And then the type of feedback you get in it is more to help you understand the current performance of your website, even more towards the quantity, the qualitative side, the whole numbers, like how often would you rate this to someone else, those types of thing, which are good, but it doesn't tell you why you're not recommending it to others.
Which brings me to my next question, which is, how do you ask the right questions?
Yes, that's so over the years, I've kind of figured out what works best and what doesn't work best. Mm-hmm. So the visitor survey is generally, you want to pop up this survey on your website, not immediately, definitely not. Same with these opt-in pop-ups. Don't do them on your as soon as visitor arrives. They will annoy your visitor. I've seen it hundreds of times in user tests. Same thing with these surveys. You need to wait until they've at least been on your product page for a few minutes, and then pop it up, mm-hmm. because they won't be able to give you good insights. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the questions; it's also the timing of it. But in terms of questions, visitor surveys are always good to ask fewer questions, because they probably don't have a lot of time. And the other thing is to incentivize it. So what I found is that if you don't incentivize it in the right way, you won't get very many responses. And the questions, and if you do get good responses, they won't be of very high quality. Mm-hmm. So if you just simply say you can win $100 gift certificate for giving your feedback, you will actually get people saying just rubbish, like, this is great, yes or no, or very not helpful, because they ultimately want to win the gift certificate. I even see it in responses that says you could ask, like, what would increase the chances of you purchasing, and some people will even say, if I win this gift certificate. Just so the way direct. Yeah, I know. So the way you get around that is you need to ask them, we will give this gift certificate away to the person who gives the best and most useful feedback. Yeah. It works so well. So much. It increases the quality of your traffic. Increases the quality of the feedback that you're getting, which then gives you better website improvement ideas.
Interesting.
Which then increases your conversion rates. But in terms of the questions, one of the most important ones is going to be really to ask, do you have any doubts or hesitations at the moment about this website or products? And that's where you can kind of understand, like, oh, okay, well, I'm not quite sure about this, or I don't know, I can't understand the shipping pricing, or like I'm missing this particular information, or I can't find something.
So they're pain points. You're getting their pain points.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to understand those pain points. Yeah. Because once you know those pain points,
you know what to fix.
You can address those pain points to make sure other visitors don't have those pain points.
Exactly. Exactly. This is exactly how software, optimizing SaaS products actually works. There's always that feedback loop, which
exactly.
Which gives
this feedback loop.
Yeah. Which gives them, continuous improvement, that ability to continuously improve, which is what customers want, both new and existing customers. Okay, so this would take us to like A/B split testing. You often say or mention why A/B testing doesn't work very well. Obviously, with this methodology you've just shared with us, it will you have the right sort of questions to ask, from your hypothesis to really build a hypothesis for your A/B split testing. But why doesn't A/B split testing work? And what other testing methodologies can you sort of apply based on all these insights you've gathered from customers or from shoppers?
Sure. Yes, that's a good question. So I think that one of the kind of myths out there is that A/B testing is CRO, and they're the same thing, but they're not. And you don't need to do A/B testing in order to improve your website. And actually, the majority of websites, I'm sure many of you listening, don't even have enough traffic to do A/B testing. Maybe you can on your homepage, but the majority of even my clients don't have much traffic to be able to do A/B testing. So that's one of the issues that I'm sure the people listening are going to agree with. Like, oh yeah, I wanted to do it, but I didn't have enough traffic, so I presume I can't do CRO. But you can. This is where this conversion research side of things comes into it. But the other problem with A/B testing is that it's all dependent on the ideas that you have in the first place. So at the end of the day, A/B testing is just a tool. So if you don't put good ideas in it, you're not going to get good results. And in order to get those good ideas, you need to use conversion research and using web analytics insights to create better hypotheses that you've seen that are issues that that if you improve those, it's going to have a much better chance of increasing your conversion rates. And then the other issue that you're going to get with A/B testing is that it will tell you which version wins or doesn't, but it doesn't tell you why it's won or it doesn't. You can't actually ask visitors questions once they've seen a variation very easily that's part of the A/B testing tool. So particularly if your A/B test loses, you won't really know why it lost. So if you're not doing visitor surveys, customer surveys to understand what these likely issues are, and you're not addressing those with your A/B tests, you're going to have a greater chance that they're going to lose. But even if they do win, you could try to figure out like, oh, okay, I think it's because of XYZ reason that we have a hypothesis, we had a hunch, or like we saw an idea from another website, but you don't really know why. So those are the biggest challenges with A/B testing out there that generally lead to you not being able to do A/B testing because you don't have enough traffic. Or even if you do it, you won't get very good results maybe from your first couple of tests. Then you're like, this doesn't work. And then I'll just go back to spending money on Facebook ads and all the other traffic sources that you've got, which again, it's going to increase your revenue. But if you're not increasing your conversion rate, therefore you're not making those ads as profitable as well, because you're having to spend more money in order to acquire a new visitor, because then when they get there, they don't convert as well as they should. So that's why A/B testing can work well, but often it doesn't work as well as you would think it does. And it's not talked about enough, if you ask me. And I used to work for Adobe, working with a test and target tool back in 2012. And the clients back then were like, oh, it's all about A/B testing, like A/B testing, A/B testing, A/B testing, and A/B testing. And over the years, I've learned to be less reliant on A/B testing to improve websites. And you can, say, for example, as I was talking about earlier, that you discover that on a small device that your buttons are hidden by a filter pop-up or a live chat in the corner. If you know that you've discovered that is an issue, you just need to launch it. You don't need to A/B test that. Yeah. Say when you know if your filters are not very good, you need to get it to a standard where they are usable and enough people are going to interact with those using UX and CRO best practices in order to get it to the level it needs to be. Yeah. Only then could you then, if you have, again, the luxury of enough traffic on your category page or search results, do some A/B testing. Yeah. But and then the other potentially good way of doing A/B testing is if you're using some kind of influence related test for a headline that I don't know the answer, and your customers, because you're getting a smaller sample size from visitor surveys, customer surveys, and user testing, you want to really test it in front of a big sample size, which is where A/B testing helps. So if you don't know whether to do a question more scarcity based or more fear based, fear of missing out,
yeah,
will that work better than if you use a testimonial or a benefit driven headline, and you don't want to just rely on what 10 people have said from user testing or 100 people from a visitor survey? That's where you'll get more results from doing high impact A/B testing.
Rich, thank you so much for coming on the 2x e-commerce podcast show. For those of you who want to learn more about, Richard Page, his website is rich-page.com, or just Google Rich Page. He has a book called Web Optimization, An Hour a Day, which I'll link to the show notes. Rich, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.